Bigger than capes.
Give me some of that sadness.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it, and then I watched it.
Oh, dry.
Hello, welcome to Bigger Than Capes. I'm Zach, and once again, I'm joined by Angela.
Hello.
How you doing? It's been a couple of weeks since our last episode that was just us, I think.
Yes, because that was Jules Verne and his lighthouse.
It was Jules Verne and his lighthouse, which immediately connects to what we're talking about today.
Yeah, nice segue.
Yeah, unless you wanted to do like some kind of intro or something, but I don't really have any news.
I have a little bit of news that I completely forgot to bring up on the Roundup podcast.
I mean, sure, we can use it.
Which was that Valiant are gonna try and do prose books.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know why I didn't bring that up.
I've read the press release for this, and I've already forgotten much of the details.
Well, there isn't much.
That'll probably be why.
They don't really. There are no specific titles that they've specified, nor writers that they have specified. They're just doing it. Is basically it. All your favourite Valiant characters in print, as if they're not already in print.
I'm right in thinking they've already done a Faith young adult.
Yes. Thing. I don't think it was like a full-on big book, but they did do some sort of faith-related no pictures version.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's interesting. It's, I guess, unexpected.
I mean, I'm thinking, because obviously Marvel did it specifically with Squirrel Girl. There were two
yes.
YA novels for her.
Yeah.
Which are okay.
It does tend to be a kind of young adult or aimed at kids kind of thing quite frequently. Yeah.
I'm just imagining the YA version of Bloodshot and getting nowhere with that.
I mean, leave that idea with me.
Yeah. Leave that with I feel like Faith is the obvious choice.
Yeah, kind of Faith, Renegades, that kind of
Harbinger.
Teenage group. I can see that you can.
Yeah, if only they hadn't killed off Gen Zero.
Yeah, if only you had a group of 10.
Yeah.
Early teens kind of kids that you weren't doing anything with, that you could send on Famous Five style adventures.
Yeah.
I don't really know what that would involve.
No.
I feel like Famous Five is kind of locked into the time period.
Very much. It's not aged well, I'll be honest.
I can't say I've revisited in the last 20 years.
No. But yeah, I think certain things will lend it to it more than others. Like I say, it is because that genre tends more towards the younger end of the market. I can't see them doing Bloodshot or Eternal Warrior or any of that. Secret Weapons would be good. Yeah. Remember, those characters do exist. That's nice.
Absolutely great characters that have just fallen by the wayside.
Yeah.
I could be into that. I do wonder if it's going to end up taking a Ninjak versus the Valiant Universe kind of non-canon, inexplicable approach, or if they'll try and tie it together, or.
I think if it works, we might fold it into canon. If it doesn't work, we might just ignore it.
If you like it, it's canon. If people don't like it, don't worry, it wasn't canon.
Yeah, pretty much.
I can't think. We've talked about something else that does that, and I can't think what it is.
We have. I can't remember.
Maybe it is. Maybe it was Valiant previously.
They do like to mix up their canon, but. Yeah, no, I think there's potential.
Yeah, I could see. I can see some kind of novelization. That sounds like it's going to be the Book of the Phantom Menace, or. But I can see certain characters transferring better than others. I think it's hard to do a character that's kind of all action. So Bloodshot is a push. You could probably make someone who's a little bit more varied work. So like your Archer and Armstrongs and your Quantum and Woodies, your Dr. Mirage.
Yeah. But probably not Exo, I would have thought.
I don't know.
Maybe. It depends where you want to pitch Jarek. Do you want to go all out space battles? Or do you want to go, here's a guy in a neighbourhood trying to make things work?
I just wonder. I'm wondering off the back of this, are we going to end up with like, you know, when TV shows get like novels that take place between stuff?
Yeah.
So, like, Supernatural had novels.
It did.
That just happened somewhere on the road. I kind of like the idea of just like there's huge periods in Arek's backstory where time suddenly moves on without anything. Without time actually moving on in real life. So I kind of like the idea of that. There was like years where allegedly he got married, had kids.
Yeah.
Can we get like a novel of that? Of the like just Exo Manowar, just the boring stuff. Just the everyday Exo Manowar. Then again,
Monday.
I'm the same person who always pitched that if I was going to write a Superman comic, I would want Superman, just the Clark Kent bits.
Just Clark going about his day, getting a coffee, doing some typing.
Yeah, pretty much. Just, you know, constantly got to play it down that he's Superman, and that's 22 pages a month. Just Clark, like, you know, oh no, I opened this carton of orange juice too strong. I've got super strength. Now I have to play it down that I'm just an idiot covered in orange juice. I don't know why that's my go-to.
That would work as a pitch. Yeah.
So, you know, DC as always, if you're out there and if you're listening.
Yeah.
I haven't written a lot, but my idea is...
solid. Nice.
I mean, since Tiny Titans finished like 20 years ago, I think there's really a space for me to bring the comedy back to DC. Because I often like to think that the C in DC does stand for detective comedy.
I mean, it should. It should.
Wow, I've gone quite hard on this pitch, considering it was an off the cuff.
Yeah, mail it to yourself, as we often say.
I don't remember what we were talking about here.
We segued Valiant's novels that are happening. Good luck.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing what we get. It's another one that I do wonder, like the Faith book I know about. I've never seen it. No,
it reputedly exists.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious, is it going to be a thing we can actually go out and buy? Or, you know, that kind of frequent concern thing. Are we actually going to get it? Are we going to get access to it? Will it be freely available on the market, or will it just be a pipe dream? Just a thing we know about. Then again, you know, we got hold of those Valiant board games, didn't we? So we did, and that Valiant card game. And I'm still confused by it. I must look it out. I've not actually looked at it for about 12 months. I try and look at it every year and see if it makes any more... Just to double check. Yeah, see if it makes any more sense. I feel like that could be a thing that I should attempt at some point. I like to think one of these days we're going to get together and really understand the Valiant deck builder. Yes. Really just get to grips with what it's talking about in the rules. Yeah, what it means. One of these years. One of these years, indeed. So with that being said, on a non-Valiant note, should we talk about yes, the book we smoothly transitioned into earlier and then... Yeah, and then completely unsegued. So yeah, we're talking about Hellcop, Volume 1, Welcome to Hell, by Brian Haberlin, Geirrod Van Dyke and Francis Takenaga. So it's written, illustrated and covers by Brian Haberlin. Geirrod Van Dyke did the colours and Francis Takenaga did the lettering. Those names are probably familiar if you've listened to the Jules Verne's episode, because that's basically the creative team who did that book, minus David Hines, who isn't involved in this. Brian Haberlin's gone on his own. So Hellcop, basically,
The genre is reputedly cyberpunk adventure. Who'd have thought? I don't think I catalogued it like that in the reviews. I think I put crime fiction on there. But hey ho.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm seeing I wouldn't have gone cyberpunk.
I get the aesthetic, but...
I feel like we've got almost a more steampunky.
Yeah, steampunk is more. So basically, mankind has discovered there are different dimensions. They have invented the technology to travel to these dimensions. One particular dimension that is known reality plane 1301-A or KRP 1301A. Bears a resemblance to hell in that it has demons and other such creatures that I'm sure we will discuss at some point. And basically, they have to have people patrolling this hell side because some of these demons make their way over to regular Earth and get addicted to sugar. There's a whole black market of demons and sugar going on. So in order to patrol this lawlessness, they have the Pan-Dimensional Security Corps, which is a bit of a mouthful, so everyone calls them Hellcops.
Yeah?
Yep. One of these Hellcops is called Virgil. He is our main character. And basically he is doing his job. He ends up being framed for murder. Has to go on the run in the Hell Dimension with the help of his friend Taj. And stuff in shoes. Plot.
Pretty concise intro. Yeah, all those things.
Yeah.
It's something we covered the first issue of way back when.
Yeah, whenever it came out.
I'm going to guess about 7 months ago.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Because we've just had issue 6
yeah.
and issue 6. Wasn't much of a gap between volumes, memory serves.
There was a slight gap of
but
about...
I think only a month, maybe 2.
Yeah, just a gap of a month.
And pretty quick to get the trade out as well, which has been good.
Yeah, very quick.
I've just realised how uninteresting that is. It's like...
I mean, it's useful to know because sometimes, we'll cover stuff in the Roundup podcast and then it'll actually be months and months before, like it could be a year before the actual trade's out and you see how
you mean like
out.
Carmen?
Don't open that wound.
Wherever Carmen
I'm writing angry letters to Image as we speak over that one.
It could be out any week now.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it is good to know that the books actually do come out. Not much of of major praise, but praise I'm making. I did really like the first issue of Hellcop, and then kind of was waiting for the trade. Similar to Jules Verne in many ways.
Yeah.
And I think I probably should have read it faster. I think it is good. I think it's good to have the full trade. I think the full arc works. However, I think some of the things that annoyed me a little bit about this, I wouldn't have noticed if I'd read it all in singles.
Yeah, I found reading it in signals. In signals, yeah. Did it via hand signals. Semaphore. No, it was... I read it in singles and it read fine in singles. It is the kind... I know a lot of books we say, oh no, we'll wait for the trade. And I think that is true for some things. With this, it is one of those that you can read it in trade, but you could also read it in singles and it's pretty fine. You follow it through. I didn't notice too many changes mentally between reading it as singles and reading it in trade. I didn't pick up on things that irritated me. It was just nice to read it as a job lot. But at the same time, I missed that. It was one of those that was my most anticipated books. Like every month, I'd be like, oh, Hellcop, yes, let's read that one. But yeah, it works singles, but it does work really well as a trade as well.
I think the thing that annoyed me about some events was that it felt like more time could have been afforded. So I feel like this is a 5-issue trade.
Yeah.
That could have quite comfortably had that extra issue and been a 6-issue trade as we used to kind of always see with stuff. I think particularly the last couple of issues where kind of everything reaches, the big climax of what's
Yeah.
going to happen with all the things.
All the plots.
Virgil on the run, what's been really going on with the kind of Hellcop's HQ, Taj's story. I think a little bit more time would have let everything come together. Things happen quite quickly from issue 3 onwards.
Yeah. I think I said that in the review of, I can't remember if it was the issue 4 or issue 5. I think I mentioned when I reviewed it, like, this could have been, like, the pacing's fine, but there could have been more, and we could have had, I wouldn't have minded another couple of issues, I think was the phrase that I used.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with this pace.
No.
I think you're right on that, and I think the kind of way everything's spaced out does work, and you get all the information you need. I just think, issue 5 in particular feels very rapid.
It does, yeah.
Events. That being said, I think as a first volume, kind of establishing the Hellcops as a premise, and we don't really get to know a lot. There are quite a lot of characters in this, but we don't really get to know a lot of them very well. We get quite a lot of Virgil and a lot of Taj, but then I don't know.
Yeah, and the Senator.
He gets
some screen time.
2 or 3 issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in most of the issues.
He's in most of them. He does he's one of the things that he kind of drops off a little bit towards the end. I mean, he is there at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, he sort of doesn't play a huge role in the climax. But there is a plot related reason for that.
Yes. Yes, there is. I don't know. How deep into spoilers are we going with, Ken?
Ooh, this is, yeah. I mean...
we don't normally shy away from it.
We don't normally shy away from spoilers.
Well, we'll see what comes up. Well,
yeah.
Play it by ear. I think... what was I saying? As a first volume, I think this does a good job of establishing the premise, giving us 2 core characters. And it's interesting. There are points in this volume that feel like would have taken, I don't know, volumes and volumes in another story. So things like Rachel, Virgil's ex-wife?
his ex-wife who has passed away.
Has passed away and is then seen in flashbacks. Is kind of a plot point that I think in other books would have been ongoing for volumes and volumes and volumes. And it's kind of a 4-issue arc.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
that's resolved and then moved on. Which is interesting, and I think adds a little something to Virgil's story. I mean, we've got that overdramatic issue 1 where he's like, "Soon I'll live again."
Yes.
Which is acknowledged by Karen as being, overdramatic.
Yeah.
And it is, but it's an arc that starts in issue 1, ends in like issue 4 quite quickly, but I think it ends in issue 4.
It does, yeah.
Sure. But kind of adds an extra layer to Virgil's character. I think this volume really does all it can to build who he is, how integral he is, kind of to the Hellcops as an organization, but also how he fits into hell, kind of, or the dimension that's an approximation thereof. And it's interesting through him to see the explanation that every demon in hell is a regular person, and they've got jobs, and they're getting divorced, and they live their lives, and they do demon things. But like people do people things, those demon things are kind of boring, and it's not just all I don't know, poking humans with pitchforks and deals with the devil. There's it kind of reminds me more of like fantasy landscapes we see, so more like, I can't think of any examples now, but kind of the examples where like fantasy stories stroll around and you see, you know, the town full of elves, and it's exactly like the town full of humans, but elfier, or it's a generic example if ever I've heard one, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see hell, or, you know, quote unquote hell, portrayed as just another town rather than, well, not a town because it's endless, but
just a place.
Yes, and we see things like the dead side in Valiant.
Yeah, there's a strong. I got very strong dead side vibes. Yeah.
Yes, I think the difference being that the dead side kind of takes on whatever attributes the writer decides it's
pretty
going
much,
to.
Yeah.
We often don't see the same thing in. We often don't see the same location in the dead side twice.
Yeah.
Whereas here it feels like Brian Haberlin has kind of gone, well, here's this city in hell and this desert in hell. Here's the river in hell. Here are the locations in hell that are like the base geography of hell. Yeah,
he definitely seems to have an idea of what hell is, how the geography of hell goes. But also the fact that some of it, like the perception that Virgil has of it, may not entirely be as it is, like the whole train of the dead.
Yes, the idea that that's the way your brain processes it because you'd just go mad otherwise.
Yeah.
Which is quite a classic thing, I guess.
Yeah.
To do with any kind of religious iconography or extreme spiritual concepts. They're like, your brain couldn't really deal with it, so we're simplified.
Yeah, so it's a train. Although in this case, it's a train with like giant insects and wings and craziness.
A little bit. And a kind of Grim Reaper just stomping the aisles, trying to clear off any living beings. Which is ridiculous, but also really works somehow. I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting the things that are kind of lifted from hell mythology or death mythology that are implanted into 1301-A.
Yeah.
That work. And it's interesting how that kind of compares to what's going on Earth and the kind of crime story we've got that's also kind of a murder mystery, but also just a straight up, like, I don't know, corporate espionage type. That's probably not the right words.
It
kind of is.
Government conspiracy, sort of, but not.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are multiple layers to what we're getting here, some of which are completely disconnected at times, but when they do connect, it does all tie up quite neatly. It reminds me of Jules Verne's Lighthouse in the sense, I mean, obviously it's the same creative team, but the storytelling where there's kind of no wasted motion, which is something we said about Jules Verne.
Yeah.
I think still stands up here, where there's aspects like Rachel that...
Yeah, and I liked that got wrapped up in 4 issues, and we didn't... Because the dead wife, as a trope, I feel...
For the, you know, for the cop character, the hero character is...
Yeah, detective or cop has lost his wife, and he's got issues and all the rest of it, and it's like, this is their characterization now, and it's nice to have that little arc of him actually getting over spoilers in a weird fantasy way, sort of, but it was nice, sort of, it's like, oh right, that's done now, so we know that about his character and we've got that in his character, but we don't need to drag this out any more than is necessary to add to his character. We don't need it to be a constant source of angst.
Yeah, but it's nice that it's a layer that they can refer back to as needed without it overshadowing the rest of Virgil's character.
Yeah, like, oh, how's your dead wife? Have you got over it?
Yeah. No, I think it's tough when story arcs kind of, well, not story arcs, but stories in general just kind of have to have the, remember when your wife died? Let's keep mentioning it.
Yeah.
It's nice to feel like that's an aspect of the character rather than a defining trait of the character.
That's it. Yeah. That's the key difference, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think the kind of explanations we're given for everything do work quite well, and the kind of motifs of Virgil becomes a Hellcop because his wife died, and he wanted to see if her spirit had gone on to this
The plane.
afterlife,
Yeah.
sort of. Explanations were given for things like when you die, your life essence or human life essence, or whatever they call it, the soul,
Yeah.
passes through this hellscape
Yeah.
and either reincorporates.
Reincorporates, yeah.
Either reincorporates there or just directly passes on to somewhere else. Is an interesting idea of explaining kind of not particularly like a religious depiction of hell, although we clearly see aspects of that in the depiction of hell.
Yep.
But to explain a kind of scientific, your soul passes through here on the way to wherever your soul ends up. So
Yeah.
it doesn't really answer the question of where you end up
No.
or why you go through hell or why you might stay in hell. But it entertains the idea that you do.
Yeah.
That makes sense, I think.
That does make sense. Because that's the thing about this being a different dimension is that your technology doesn't necessarily work. It's more of a magic based technology, hence the more steampunk aspect to it. It's different. You have to be aware that there are differences with how this world operates. But it's not, and you get that, you get the concept, it's laid out there, but we don't need to go into the scientific detail of why this happens or what. It just nicely establishes, yeah, this is the world, these are the rules, there you go.
Yeah, and it touches on the scientific
Yeah.
in ways. I think it's issue 2 that starts with Virgil explaining that they tore a hole in the fabric of reality in Philadelphia for some reason.
I like this Philadelphia. It says a lot.
As they tried to use a little bit of Tesla leftover tech with a little bit of Einstein leftover concepts to basically cloak a ship. And they do cloak the ship by making it, jump to a different reality.
Yep.
And when it comes back, they've torn a permanent hole in between dimensions, which allows them to hop between dimensions. It's just most of them are empty.
Yeah, I liked that was that. It was like there's a lot of dimensions, but this is the focus on one dimension, and the explanation there is quite good in that this is one of the few dimensions where there's actually anything going on.
Yeah, and there's enough kind of subterfuge.
Yes.
Is that a word I want to use?
It's a good word.
There's enough kind of subterfuge in play that if we were told later down the line that there actually are other inhabited dimensions that we haven't seen because you can't trust the guys running the place, or the government kept them under wraps, it would be in keeping with what we've been told in this first volume. Equally, it's nice to say we can go to different dimensions. Here's the only one we found. It kind of gives you the option of going back into the explorer role that we see Briggs talk about, the kind of exploration of other worlds.
Yeah, Briggs is the first Hellcop.
He is, who aesthetically at least heavily inspired by Avatar and the Legend of Korra and the kind of air tribe.
Yeah.
With the kind of arrow and the big
blue,
big staffs, big blue arrow on the head. I'm not sure why that's the influence. I guess it's something to do with, the first and the... being the first Hellcop and the kind of spiritualist side. And
I just fancied painting my head blue.
yeah, and I can, I like Avatar and I like Korra, so I can I can get on board with it, but it does seem very you've taken one look at that design and gone, that works.
Yeah,
I'll have a bit of that. But we do also get within the plot kind of influence from the Avatar, like the James Cameron,
or Dances with Wolves would be for the older folk would be the reference.
And if you want to be that person, Angela,
yeah.
I hear we're getting like 100 new Avatar films this year.
We are,
and every other year forever. But that kind of alien world, let's have some resources, is
Yeah, and also one of the first guys to discover it, who is a scientist in this case, but he decides to go native and live in the world, and his allegiance is to that world as opposed to the world he's come from.
Which is an interesting plot, I think. Introducing Briggs as, the scientist that sees, hey, we shouldn't just steal all this stuff. We should respect this new world we've found. Is really interesting. And I like the relationship we see between some Hellcops and the, hellscape and the demons that live there, where there's this kind of odd alliance. Early on, we see Virgil asking his, air quotes, usual sources for information, and they're all like doing the classic kind of, thanks for the human glasses, by the way. It's like, you should really come down for dinner one night, and all that kind of classic cop, criminal informant type roles. It does show this weird kind of getting on, and that's interesting within itself to see these interactions between, like, weird demons and admittedly weird human.
Yeah.
Also stuff that gets really weird, like the cherubs, who are like,
they're creepy.
I don't even know.
Creepy as hell.
You might say.
Yeah.
Who are kind of like, I don't know.
They're not like the cherubs you expect. Like, people think, cherubs, floating about, dropping arrows on people, making them fall in love. These are flipping terrifying.
Genderless, tattooed, flying, like, ruffians.
They're more like a biker gang.
Yeah.
With wings. And the bodies of babies.
He's horrible in, just about every way.
Yeah.
And we don't even see them that frequently, and they leave such a creepy impression. We also see flying gold pigs. And
with punk hairdos and earrings.
No explanation there, no context given. But I like I think all the little aspects of things that are referenced, as things that have bled over into our world. It kind of works to go, we talk about when pigs fly, and here are the pigs flying. So clearly that aesthetic had to come from somewhere, and the cherubs. And I think a lot of thought has clearly gone into hell.
Yeah.
I question at times, and whilst I was reading this, if more thought has gone into kind of the hell dimension than has gone into the overall plot for the Hellcops themselves.
Yeah, the plot is nothing new, and it's serviceable, and it's fine. But yeah, it's interesting that we're basically concentrating, particularly having read issue 6, which is the start of a new arc, which takes things in a completely different direction.
Okay.
Completely. It's interesting that we spend all this time with hell and all that, and sort of, you don't really get any idea of who these other cops are. You see Karen, his partner, and you see the captain, but you don't really see much of the overall organisation of the Hellcops themselves. You've got Taj, and you've got the guy who she sabotages.
Will Brode.
That's
Or
it.
Will Brody?
Will Brody. Spoiler alert, she sabotages him because she's trying to help Virgil. But yeah, you see sort of that, but she's like, what do you do? And he's like, it's classified.
Yeah, which makes sense as the issue goes on.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Volume goes on.
Yeah. But at the same time, yeah, we don't see much of how the Hellcops work. We get Briggs is the first Hellcop. And I like that they started off as scientists and then it's like the government didn't want scientists. They wanted soldiers. So they brought in Hellcops. And that's why you're just a... Did you never question why you, just an ordinary beat officer, got dragged into this kind of thing? But we don't spend much time looking at, like, overall, what else do the Hellcops do? Where do they, how many of them are there? There are many questions about them as an organisation that don't get answered, which is fine because this is more of a character study on one particular Hellcop and his friend and what he does. And it's more about sort of exploring hell, which works for the story as well, because the story is about how terrible, ultimately, humans have been to hell. I think you need to spend a lot of time in hell with the demons, doing the things, seeing the landscape, seeing how it all works, in order to sort of, that's the whole, to go back to the plot of the James Cameron film Avatar, that's the reason why we spend so much time with the Na'vi. So ultimately, you have sympathy for them. And it's similar here. Not that you don't see where Virgil's come from, because you do see the captain berating Taj, who's desperately trying to keep him off the radar. And yeah, this portal's totally broken. Yeah, don't know how that's happened. And him calling in other people. So you do see some of that. It's not like that's forgotten, but the key bit for there is really that's Taj's story. So sort of Taj's story is set in the Hellcops HQ.
Yeah.
And Virgil's story is set in hell. So you don't get too much of the overall how it works, but I don't have a problem with that.
No, I think you see enough of kind of both sides to not have too many questions.
Yes.
I mean, I have some questions. Mostly questions about the tech they use and how for many things. Like there is a point where he's on the Omnicycle.
Yep.
And drives off a cliff down a sheer drop.
Yeah.
And I know they tell me that the gravity's lesser in hell, but what?
He's fine.
He's fine.
He's fine.
But there's things like that are baffling, and like, why is he just driving off a cliff right now? Like, is it Val Kilmer's Batmobile that just drives up walls? Or was that Keaton? I can't remember.
I feel like it was Kilmer.
I want it to be Kilmer.
Yeah.
It feels like Val Kilmer.
It feels more of a Val Kilmer than a Michael Keaton move.
Second best Batman. We all know it's reverse order for the 90s. It's Clooney, Kilmer, Keaton.
Yeah. That's how it goes.
It's Adam West.
Yeah, Adam West is still the best one.
I didn't think I was going to make that.
There we go, segue.
What a recurring joke I've made throughout my podcasting life. George Clooney is the best Batman. Just tell your friends.
Okay.
I don't know. Things like that were like, okay, just driving down a cliff. Just on your giant wheel. That's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever you want, Virgil. The Omnicycles I like. I like a lot of the tech designs. I think, they have this steampunk kind of chunkiness, but the explanation that's given of technology doesn't really work unless it's kind of, analog gears and cogs and levers and such. So he has massive headphones around his head, around his neck, but we don't know. Yeah. We never know why. He doesn't use them for anything.
He doesn't use them, no. And his goggles, he has his sunglasses goggles.
We don't really get context. We don't really get context for a lot of the gear the Hellcops carry around, but
it looks good.
It looks
aesthetically.
Good. I think we've had a lot of steampunk in the 2000s aesthetically.
Yep.
And it's nice for someone to give you reason and not just go, I think steampunk's cool. I think it's better for it. I think it's better when somebody can explain the reason everything is, old school technologically without just being like, I thought it looks good. I like that there is reason.
Yeah.
One thing that also got me and reminded me of classic Angela.
Yeah.
There are some points in this where, like, the example I'm going to use is page starts, Taj is helping Virgil out of his cell.
Yeah.
Like, she breaks him out.
Yeah.
Mid-page, later, and we cut to a different location.
Yeah.
Like, which reminds me of, like, old Gold Key comics.
Very
like,
much.
Where you'll be like, 9-panel grid. Panel 5, we've changed location inexplicably. Like, what do you mean this is mid-page and it doesn't make sense? This is where we change. It's got that kind of
very old school method.
Old school comics method of, the scene changes. It's like, don't we do this at the end of the page? It's like, on the turn? No. Oh, wow, okay. Like, right now, new location. Could not care less.
Yeah.
Just, at least in this, there's a little, box in the corner that says later, whereas, like, Gold Key comics would just be like, the wall's a different colour. Obviously, it's a different place.
How can you not tell? I thought we telegraphed this really well.
I don't know if that's just a coincidence of using the pages you've got, or... Because I know other comics would have done the Virgil in his cell getting broken out, would have done it in 4 panels on a single page, and then changed location. So that interested me, especially. I think the panel layout is really solid throughout the book. I think the kind of choices of paneling are really nice and varied.
Yeah, it reminds. That's what I loved about Jules Verne's Lighthouse, was the fact that it was always interesting in the way that it was put together, and that continues here. There's panels on panels, and there's big panels and little panels, and we use the white space, and it's like, I especially like when he's rescued the senator from the train, and the guy's just coming to terms with, hey, you're dead. And there's just the close-ups of his face, they just please me.
It's really well done. I think art in general, obviously, after Jules Verne's Lighthouse, I'm clearly on board with Brian Haberlin's art.
Yep.
And I think it's as strong here as it was in Jules Verne.
Yep.
I think in some ways he gets to go further here. Demons get to be kind of as weird as you can imagine them to be.
And they go really weird.
Yeah, and I think the kind of grim, gross details of, like, look at these giant blackened teeth of this giant monster, and look at these terrifying Venus flytraps, and look at the kind of detail gives a lot of freedom. And whilst don't get me wrong, landscapes are amazing, I think.
Oh yeah,
you can see the kind of real world locations they draw on to make. It's interesting because you see like, hey, I recognize this as, like, you've clearly looked at, like, the landscape of Australia and then gone, this is what the desert looks like in Hell, but it feels very real world, and they talk about Hell as a dimension being a planet, and I think when we see landscapes there that reflect our own, it makes it more believable as a planet.
Yeah.
Because although we see plenty of things, I hate that this is the reference I'm going to make. Although we see plenty of films and comics and stuff that show an unrecognizable landscape, like, the 2015 Fantastic Four, which shows another dimension that is wildly different from our own and trying to kill you.
Yep.
Here we see another dimension that's kind of the same as our own and not actively trying to kill you. It's just, here's the desert. here's the River Leth, which will, wipe your brain clean.
Yep.
But it's not actively coming at you. It's not Victor Von Doom's, green
goo
bleeding across the planet. I can't remember what the planet's called in. It's not like Planet X or something.
It is
terrible. Oh God, why? It's something
Sorry.
about being in a room with you that like immediately makes me start referencing films that we've watched that are not good. Incidentally, if you wanted to hear more about 2015's Fan 4 Stick, there's a full episode on that.
and it's over 2 hours long. It's longer than the actual film itself.
And just as fun.
True.
What was my point? Oh yeah, art good.
Art good. Yeah. No, it is. I like that you've got this. Like you say, it feels like it is a full dimension. It's not just like, because often when you have another dimension, it just feels like a smallish geographical area, like the size of a country, not a planet. Whereas
Yes.
this definitely feels like it is a planet. It's large, and you just feel like there is a lot that's unexplored.
And there's parts of it that don't work like Earth. Like we
Yeah.
see Taj teleports the team that are going after Virgil to the top of a huge, stone spire,
Yeah.
which is surrounded by random floating rocks, so they can't teleport back out.
Yeah.
And I mean, I like that as a scene. I like the time spent where they kind of materialize at the top of this, huge stack of rock. And I like, well, we're going to have to rappel down, and it's a long way.
Yeah.
There's there's an aspect to that I can see being in other things. It's the kind of throwaway one panel scene that you would get in an animated show, or you would get in a comedy film, to just set up like, oh, these guys are trapped and here's why it's funny.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I do think even the characters we only briefly see, the interactions with them, like the trackers who help Virgil and Senator Reynolds across, the vast plain of hell, kind of are given enough information. One of them is never even named, but they're given enough information with them being, aren't you part of the Teppan clan, and aren't you feuding with this other clan, and isn't this your whole deal, is like not necessary to the plot, but shows an understanding that every character should have a backstory. And I've referenced this in a previous podcast a few weeks ago, or something similar, about like, I know there's a thing from the Coen brothers about always planning a character's backstory, so knowing more about the character than the audience knows, so that even though that's not shown on screen, you've at least thought it through. And I guess that's the same kind of thing we see here, that even though these two trackers don't really matter,
Ultimately, no.
like their character, I mean, they progress the story and they're valued.
Yeah.
They serve a purpose, but there's clearly a thought gone into their backstory, and that they're part of some clan we've never heard of, and backstory is interesting enough to push the story forward in a new way and show Virgil's knowledge.
Yeah.
And he comes across as being not like a know-it-all, but informed about the affairs of hell. And
he has an interest beyond just the crime. Well, I mean, you could argue that clans trying to kill each other is a crime.
Debatable.
But he's got this sense of the whole way that the culture of hell works. And it feels like Brian Haberlin has like a Bible where he's written all this stuff down. And he it feels like the writer is also informed. Like he knows exactly how this works, who these characters are, and he can just drop stuff like that in, and it does just add a little bit more richness to the whole interaction.
It feels informed enough to tell you that, there is a world here. This isn't just a throwaway detail. There is enough information that if you want to know more about the Tepen clan,
Yep.
I feel like Brian Haberlin can tell you.
Yeah, he will give you a
He
rundown.
might not want to, but
Hold him at gunpoint.
we'll wait for, when we do our interview episode with him.
I mean, we're all pulling for that.
Incidentally, Brian, if you want in,
Please let us know. We would love to. Big fans of your work.
I think it would be interesting to dig into the endless depths of Hellcop.
Yeah.
I don't know where we would go with that, but that would be fun. I think I've said a lot of what I had to say, if I'm honest with you. I liked the first issue of this. I like the first volume of this.
Yep.
I am really interested in how you expand on this premise now that the groundwork has been laid.
And they do. And what I like is... I'm just going to dip briefly into some spoilers for issue 6. Issue 6 is basically set on Earth.
Yeah.
But we suddenly get this little expansion of the Hellcops as an organisation. We start to see other aspects of it and what they do, and also different aspects of the creatures of hell.
Which I think is kind of the direction this has to go
Yeah,
in.
it feels like, not that we've exhausted hell, but it feels like we've fixed this for now. Briggs is there, he's fine. That can be laid to rest for a bit. What else is going on? And what are the repercussions after the conclusion of this? And certainly the second arc has started off really strongly in that it's taken it in a different direction.
Fair. I think there is, merit to telling a volume largely set in hell, and obviously Virgil trying to find Karen's soul after he's been accused of murdering her.
Yep.
Is a great option to kind of dump him in this new world and explore it with him. Once that's resolved, I think it is interesting to then expand on what the Hellcops are in the, standard Earth world.
Yeah.
Unstandard Earth world in many ways.
Yeah. And that is what happens, spoilers, in issue 6. That is very much the premise there, which is the logical place for this to go.
Yeah, I think balancing that out, so you've seen quite a lot of hell, show us how that affects Earth. And the Sasquatch, which is mentioned in this, that, wandered through a soft spot onto Earth, got spotted, wandered back out through a soft spot. That's why there's no evidence to then revisit that idea.
Yeah, I like that we're revisiting something that we've sort of already established is a thing.
Next up, the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, I'm sure that exists in hell. But no, it's... One thing we've not mentioned as well is that although it's at parts quite dark, we're dealing with murder and death and hell and corporate greed. But there's also some real... There's moments where I did laugh out loud a little bit. Which was similar to Jules Verne in that there is a thread of humour that runs through it.
Yeah, like Virgil getting punched by the little ice demon imp thing, and Karen being like, I can't remember if it's Karen or Taj, who says, he must have been enchanted, and Virgil's like, I keep telling myself.
Yeah.
Otherwise I got knocked out by, this tiny little monster that's half my size.
Yeah.
Which is funny. I think there is comedy to the weird darkness of this world, which is good and rewarding. I think it would be... I think every good cop story has has comedy to it.
Has to I think you have to have that, because otherwise it is just unrelenting misery. I don't think this would necessarily be that without the humour, because I think there's enough interest that it's just interesting rather than misery.
Yeah.
But it is nice to sort of have that tone where you don't have to worry about going too dark, because there is balance. And also, the fact that this is, there are some absolutely ridiculous concepts going on here. It sort of is something that could have, quite broad humour, but I think it doesn't actually go that way, because, we've got ridiculous things like, portals and Trains of the Dead and the Grim Reaper and, quite high concept ideas that you could end up quite po-faced about it, quite overly serious about it, or alternatively, you could end up not taking it seriously enough. But this strikes the right balance. It's aware that there's some absolutely crazy stuff going on, but at the same time, it's not going too far the other way.
I agree completely. Just really well put together.
It is.
Which I think is exactly what we said about Lighthouse.
Yeah. Also, three-headed dog. Not mentioned Edgar.
True, yeah.
Edgar's adorable.
Three-headed puppy.
Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah, three-headed puppy. Everyone should have one. And his mother, who is rather larger.
Indeed, yeah. There is a noticeable contrast. But it again, it's nice to draw on these mythological kind of concepts.
Yeah, Cerberus is, of course, the dog guarding the gates of hell, and here's a three-headed dog.
It works.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. It's... I don't know. I can't even do words. Those little ideas of, here's a three-headed dog. You know, if you know the reference... great. If you don't, it's just a three-headed dog, and that's good too. I think there's an effort made to have you understand these references. So not necessarily have you understand these references, but to be like, three-headed dog. You can?
Yeah.
But not ram it down your throat if you don't know. I've read certain things that get into hell mythos and kind of... it feels like they are beating you around the head with a copy of Dante's Inferno. Like,
yeah.
Hey, you get it? Do you get it? Or kind of referencing, I don't know, is it William Blake who did kind of, I want to say paintings of like hell? And
He did, yeah, because he saw visions of angels in the fire as well.
he was fine.
He was normal.
Things like that, I've read stuff that's like, well, you know about William Blake and hell, right? It's like, I can't say I do. It's like, well, you're going to get a crash course on it in the next 4 issues, so sit down. I think it's nice. And don't get me wrong, nothing against referencing William Blake or referencing Dante's Inferno. I think it can be done well, and people do it well.
Yeah.
And nothing against the books I've read that are like beating you around the head with Dante's Inferno, but it's a solid book. It's a good read. You know, there's a reason... however many years later,
it's still going as a concept.
It's still
yeah,
talked about and not just remembered. Oh no, that's Dante's Peak.
It's Pierce Brosnan.
Dante's Peak not held in the same regard as Dante's Inferno, I imagine, by anyone but me.
I mean, I enjoyed it.
He has lava-proof tires.
I know.
This is so off the...
It's very off peak now.
I'm all for some Dante's Inferno references, and I'm sure there are some in Hellcop I've missed or wasn't thinking about. Also, here's a question: are parademons a thing? I thought parademons were a DC Comics Apocalypse thing. Are parademons just like...
I think they do exist in the concept of, because we talk about parapsychology. If you've come across, they're weird. So I'm guessing it's kind of like, yeah, there are paranormal demons, and therefore they are parademons.
Yeah,
that would be my guess. I think they are based in some concept that does exist outside of DC.
I mean, obviously, I understand that Apocalypse is a play on Apocalypse, and
Yeah.
I understand that DC Comics didn't invent the concept of hell.
No.
Despite what I'm sure their legal team would have you believe. I don't know, that was one of the things. Specifically calling them parademons immediately put me on to.
It did ring a bell. I was like, oh yeah, parademons. I don't know what they are, but the name did sort of, it was familiar, and I did think
they don't look dissimilar to Darkseid's guys.
They don't. No, they do. They do have a resemblance.
So yeah, not
you go.
not an important bit of dialogue
No.
to discuss, but I am curious about parademons.
Parademons. More parademons, please.
I like Hellcop.
Yeah.
Hellcop's good.
It's a good book, yeah.
Looking forward to seeing where the second arc goes.
Yeah, it started off really well, so I'm optimistic.
That's all we can really hope for, I think.
Yeah.
I'm quite curious. I feel like I should revisit some of Brian Haberlin's previous things. I started reading The Marked and never finished it, and now I'm kind of curious.
Yeah.
I did also notice, and I wasn't sure if that's connected to The Marked or just a coincidence, that when we see Rachel, she does have a big tattoo across her back.
Oh, yeah.
Might just be a coincidence, and Brian Haberlin's just into drawing tattoos after doing The Marked. But
It's just like that. It could be a little in-joke.
yeah.
Like, hey, remember I did that book? Here's something that could be a reference to it.
So maybe I'm going to go and read The Marked.
Yeah.
Who knows? Anything else?
I can't
don't
add
know.
anything else. It's a good book. And also it kind of stands on its own. So I think you could read this and then happily wait for the second arc to actually come out in trade.
Definitely. I don't think this... I think some things we read and then immediately start picking up the singles. And I think with this, you could quite comfortably just wait the 6 months.
Yeah.
Buy the next trade. Keep on rolling. Which is nice.
Yeah.
I'm not always a fan of things where I read a trade and then immediately start feeling like I have to read the singles. It's hard to find the time.
There is that, yes.
That said, I'm probably going to read the singles.
Can recommend issue 6, yeah.
But yeah, good stuff.
Good book. Yeah.
So, I guess with that being said, we've been Angela and Zach, collectively bigger than capes. I guess we'll continue to be.
We shall.
And remember that comics are
Bigger than capes.